Just want to make sure, first of all, that we're pronouncing the name of the company right and your name right.
There's no way. I've
Okay.
given up on the
Okay.
correct pronunciation over a decade ago. I have to start choosing names that are more universal for me and for my companies.
Welcome to Work is Weird Now. Today we have Hannah Topler with us. She is the CEO of Intrare, a startup using AI to connect refugees, migrants, and other marginalized candidates to employers facing talent shortages. And before founding Intrare, she worked at the UN in Geneva and Oxfam in Mexico, and she's currently based in Mexico City. Is that right?
That
Yes.
is right.
And she's also a finalist in the She Shapes AI Future of Work category, which we are covering as part of our work with She Shapes AI. And today's core question of the day is, can AI open doors to work for marginalized people? So welcome, Hannah, and thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Good. So can you start by telling us about Intrare and what it does and who it's for? That would be a great place to begin.
Yeah, for sure. So we're a social startup that was born and works in Mexico, now starting to expand throughout Latin America. We work with all groups that are marginalized in the job market. So we started out with refugees and migrants. And then at some point, we realized that so many other groups were facing challenges as well in accessing formal jobs and exiting poverty. So we expanded to single moms, opportunity youth, the silver economy, to the LGBTIQ plus population, and also generally people that are just in informality and poverty. So really our product for them is a whole WhatsApp solution because that's what everybody uses, even if they don't have data. It's super simple. So from one click, whether it's from our UN partners or Facebook, people sign up right there. We can detect their needs in terms of documents and inclusion. We train them for employability through WhatsApp. We provide a lot of coaching, which is a mix between humans and now becoming also agentic. We connect them to job opportunities, and through WhatsApp, they can apply to jobs. And then we even do the interviews on WhatsApp and follow the whole process. And that's a really great process for people because it's super simple to access, but it's also very empathetic for them. And on the other side, for employers, the solution looks entirely different because there we build a SaaS platform to make it really simple for them to upload the job openings they have. We focus on companies that offer frontline positions. It's a lot of like operative positions from logistics to sales, customer success, because that's exactly what the candidates we work with can access best. So they upload tons of job openings. They receive the candidate applications right there. Our WhatsApp interviews provide directly information on the candidate right there, and they manage the whole process through the platform itself. And our proprietary AI, that for sure we'll talk about a little bit more, is kind of everywhere in there.
I mean, I think there's kind of like a central maybe irony in this product, in that I think a lot of people's perceptions are that AI has actually ruined recruitment and hiring. So how does your product kind of address that fundamental issue?
Yeah, so actually the way we got to AI was that we started realizing that we had to build tech at some point, right, to scale what we were doing. So I was looking for open source products and algorithms first, and I found nothing. And all I found was a lot of information that most things out there are super biased against these kinds of candidates. So I found my now co-founder and scientific advisors at MIT, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, who are data scientists, specialists in AI fairness. We built our first algorithms were like with Python and Excel. And then from there, we went on to build much more sophisticated algorithms that were actually pre-ChatGPT and that now integrate with the open LLMs that exist and that are really fast. And what they do is minimize bias. Because when we measure bias in typical hiring systems, refugees or migrants or the LGBTIQ plus community get 5 times less and worse opportunities than average candidates if they have the same profile. It's really drastic. So that's what we do. We minimize bias effectively so everybody really gets the fair chance. But the second way we also use AI to make work more inclusive is through our whole WhatsApp solution. A lot in there is automated with AI, a lot of it is agentic, and really we take advantage of that to make the interaction for candidates really simple. Those are people that are not super digitized and that don't necessarily have the experience in taking an in-person interview with a company, right? So like a lot of the things that we do is actually reduce the friction for them and create a really nice experience where they feel welcome, they feel comfortable, it's easy for them. So we are really using that to make it much more inclusive.
Wow.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
so what is it that was in your background that drove you towards this particular product? Like what is your why that sits behind this?
You know, the truth is, I'm from Germany, right? Far away from Mexico. And I realized very, very young that my grandfathers had both fought for the Nazi regime. And that really made me question very much how people that were now showing up to me as very value-based people were also able to do really horrific things, you know, support a really horrific regime. So I started thinking like, how does this happen? And then refugees started arriving to Germany and the right wing started winning. I was in London when Brexit happened. And then I came to Mexico and saw how here way more people were arriving. There were calculations of around 1 million migrants arriving to Mexico every year. Mexico then became the third country in highest numbers of asylum seekers in the world. So like, but nobody was caring about this, right? So I thought like there's a really big opportunity to take this neutral attitude and do job inclusion so locals can actually meet those people and form positive attitudes from the outset. And it's really exciting to see that, yeah, we do this whole job inclusion. We have an amazing product. We've served over 25,000 people. But on the other side of the companies, we can see that a real attitude change has happened where companies now are driving inclusion for migrants and refugees, but also all these other marginalized communities because they have really changed the way they think about them.
And where do most of the migrants come from in Mexico? Is it mostly South America, Central America?
A lot, yeah. We get a lot of people from Venezuela, which is
Hmm.
still expulsing people because the
Yeah.
situation is so unstable. And then a lot from Central America. All of those kind of follow the same route, right? And also a lot are coming from Haiti, which has just become more and more unstable over time. And because of the changes that the Trump regime has implemented, a lot of people now know that there is no way for them to build a life in the US, or it's very precarious. So a
Mm.
lot of people are now deciding to apply for asylum in Mexico, even though initially they wanted to go to the US.
And what about the sectors that you're serving? So you mentioned logistics. Why do they have talent shortages, and how does this help fill their needs?
Actually quite surprising. I think people usually think that in Mexico and Latam, there must be a lot of low-skilled workers available, so there shouldn't be a shortage. But 70% of companies here have issues in filling their positions. So what we see is for sure the population has increased their education levels faster than the job levels require, right? So there is this shortage opening, and we're actually working with companies to improve the access to documents for migrants in Mexico, which the government is very hesitant to give, but the companies see like, obviously, we need more workers. So if we can get them documents faster and easier, that would be beneficial for everyone. So that's something where these kinds of groups perfectly fit in. And at the same time, all those groups that we work with are 50% of the job market. And because of all the barriers there exist, they mainly go into informal positions, right? So you'll have people in sales positions in more informal settings, but lots of positions in the country are just informal, or people will have their own small businesses. So there's a lot of talent that's kind of hidden in this informal market, and where we also see companies now realizing, well, if we need more talent, we should get it out of that informal market. So we work a lot with them from logistics to retail to traditional sales to also improve conditions and improve the hiring processes so it's easier for those people to switch into formal jobs.
And what does this mean for the people who actually get into this work? Like, do you have any stories that you kind of trot out regularly to demonstrate how this has actually changed people's lives?
Yeah, I mean it's quite impressive. For example, there was this woman from Haiti that signed up with us, I think now over 1.5 years ago, but I had the chance to meet her. And from Haiti, like people come and don't speak Spanish. They only speak Creole usually. So she was really struggling in finding a job. She didn't have a document that was necessary. And within 2 weeks, we were able to get her the missing documents that she had no idea how to access. We prepared her through trainings to know how to talk to the employer. And she had been learning some basic Spanish. So what we say is, okay, we're going to connect you to jobs where you don't have to be fluent in Spanish. So one of the partner companies that we have is a manufacturing companies that produces yarn. We connected her with them. They knew that her Spanish wasn't that good. And they said, perfect, she can learn on the job and she doesn't have to communicate beyond basic Spanish at this point. So she was hired in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And her family had to stay behind in Haiti. It's super complicated to get out. It's very expensive as well. So from the second month on, she told us, now I'm even able to send money back home to my parents and hopefully they can come follow me. So every story also impacts the whole family that's either come with people, lots of people have small children or so many times the parents have to stay back because they don't
Yeah.
have the opportunity to go. So it's really like a whole community effect.
Yeah, it's like breaking up families and things like that, which just you can't even bear the thought, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that the AI makes possible then that wasn't possible before? Like, there's obviously like a scale aspect here, right? So, and then there's also a kind of customization piece too.
Could I jump in with something there? Because I was going to ask a similar question, but I think it's the moment before is, at what point did you know that you needed something to accelerate it?
Yeah, we were at a point where we were working with around 200 refugees and migrants a year. And I was thinking, but there are so many. And the response from people and from companies was so great. We were working with lots of companies that, someone referred and they said, this is so cool. I want to hire refugees, and they got really excited when they hired the first people. And I started seeing our limitations in doing the manual connection because there are so many aspects to take care of. And I thought, well, we are going to become a recruitment agency, which is a lot of manual work. And I just thought it just makes so much sense to use AI to make that connection better and to simplify the process. And at that point was when I reached out to a project by an economics Nobel laureate that had done something similar. I thought, those people for sure know how to solve this problem. And to my surprise, they answered my email and we
Amazing.
built our first algorithm together.
That's
And I
very
think,
cool. You just got to ask the question, right?
and really, I think it's crazy to think that typical tools give 5 times less and worse opportunities to marginalized groups. And
Yeah.
it's a loss for companies, because you miss out on 50% of the talent. It's
Hmm.
crazy. If you think about it, it's such a market inefficiency as well. So I think it's really exciting. For us right now, it's also really exciting to tell the market, look, everybody is using LLMs for everything, not just for hiring, but also for credits and healthcare. And that is going to increase inequality if we don't check it well. And it's not that hard to build an add-on that checks the results of the LLM and minimizes bias. That's what we developed now with our advisors at MIT. And what we see is that's not that expensive and it increases business results. And at the same time, you can actually take advantage of the fact that humans are biased. But AI, if we give it biased data, it's going to maximize the bias. Whereas if we tell it effectively how to minimize the bias, it's going to be much less biased than us. So I think that AI is actually giving us a huge opportunity to help us accelerate making society much fairer in all of these aspects. So there's a huge opportunity in there that's still totally not taken advantage of.
Yeah, so
How
it's like
is
not only are we getting it wrong because we are feeding it bad data that's making it unfair, but we're also not harnessing the potential it has in order to make the world more fair. So it's sort of these two aspects, isn't it?
Totally. And, I think we don't even have a lot of unbiased data, When we trained our first algorithms, we used our own data. And of course, it's very, very sensitive data where our team was very careful in not being biased at all. But most data in the world is biased. So I think our focus has to be, of course, on debiasing that data before training, but being aware of the fact that still everything that comes out is going to have some bias. And we have to also have mechanisms to debias and not just trust in the systems that the market is giving us, In the end, I think we're not going to get so far. And most companies are using open LLMs for what they do.
the news? Obviously, you're either really positive about AI or negative, and there's so much doom and gloom news about AI removing jobs. I imagine you must get lots of people asking you about what do you think about the future of work and AI removing jobs. How do you feel about that whole landscape?
I am a little scared because I think most people and most companies are not putting the effort in to remove bias. And I think it's an effort. You have to make it. Otherwise, we are going to go into a more unequal direction. And the second aspect is also that, of course, companies that want to maximize profit fast are going to take advantage of AI to see what jobs they can replace, right? We're hearing of the whole crisis in the US of no junior positions being hired because we don't need them. And that's a short-sighted step because then you're not going to have any senior people in a few years because no one is getting to be junior at some point and is able to learn. And I think what we see in more low-skilled positions, which is where people are most vulnerable, for example, customer success. So call center jobs are jobs that are quite easily accessible, that can be well paid, but it's very easy to start replacing that by AI. And I think nobody is really thinking, okay, all of these people, what jobs can they move into? And I think on one side, companies have to think about that, but I also think that governments have to have a plan really thinking about where can those skills go and how can we help people also upskill. One thing that we are starting to do now with Microsoft is to offer AI skills for frontline workers as one of our training opportunities. Companies are not even asking for it yet. But I know that if someone in sales knows how to use LLMs well, to prompt really well, they're going to become a better salesperson. It doesn't even have to be super sophisticated yet, right? Just for people to get comfortable with AI and use it, I think that's one way to help low-skilled workers continue being really valuable to companies.
Yeah, it does feel like stage one of the corporate world looking at AI has been about automation, right? Rather than augmentation. And I do wonder, I mean, do you think we're going to see a slight shift back towards actually hiring in people who make sense of it, who work with AI to deliver something better as opposed to, have AI entirely replace their roles?
Yeah, I think for sure in a lot of roles, it's humans working well with AI. And I think right now for a lot of jobs, that's the best bet to make sure, because if you're good at your job and you're good at using AI, I think that's a perfect combination because that way you really increase your own productivity. And I think for sure the three of us here are an example of that. I use AI for so many things. It makes me so much faster. Right now, if I imagine doing something, like writing something and not having AI as my editor, that makes me think like I would be so slow, right? So I think that's a great example. And I think it happens across so many jobs. So for sure, I think a lot of companies are going to bet on that. But I do think there is an unresolved question of what are we going to do with the fact that most probably, at least in some decades, maybe faster, we will need less human labor. I think that's good news because, for example, right now in Mexico, the working hours are usually 48 per week, getting reduced slowly. But what it means is that most people here work 6 days a week, because of how companies have to manage their productivity. And most things are also open working on Sundays. Most people work on weekends, have a rest day during the week, take rotating shifts, which in the best case is morning and afternoon. That's not great. You know, if you can imagine a world where people have to work less because we are more productive with AI, I think that would be ideal because people can actually have lives and develop beyond just surviving. And that's such a big question for humanity right now. How can we build a new economic system that works with AI and that takes advantage of all of that to give us more well-being, but that for sure needs a different redistributive structure, because otherwise we're going to have very, very few people capturing all the value of AI and a lot of people slipping down from the upward curve that we have in inequality and poverty improving. We could go into a downward slump.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about it too in the context of other global macro trends around population, the aging population, the fact that the birth rates are lower in a lot of parts of the world, or at least in the Western world. And actually, potentially, we might have fewer people working in some places than we do in others. And actually, that starts to impact on how many people do we actually need to be working. But yeah, to your point, I think the point around concentrating the value of AI in one place is certainly the danger I think we're facing right now. What are you hoping to do with Intrare next? So what's the kind of big aspiration if you could achieve everything you want to achieve?
I love that question. So number one, we are expanding across Mexico, right? We still have a huge population to reach. We're at 25,000 candidates now, and we still have millions and millions to go. So I think honestly, that's really exciting because right now we're in a really big growth curve. Our product is working so well. We are being able to change how companies work as well. But the big step is really to expand what we have regionally and globally. So now we have already received lots of requests from governments and organizations in Brazil, in Colombia, and other countries saying, we need your solution. So right now we're exploring how to expand it best. And I think the amazing thing about this kind of technology that like through WhatsApp interacts with candidates, it's quite easy to expand. And since language doesn't matter anymore because AI can translate it specific for the type of Spanish in Colombia, for the type of Portuguese spoken in Brazil, that barrier is gone as well. So I'm very excited for that. And I think third thing that we would love to do is bring our bias minimization into other companies that are doing recruitment and that don't have the know-how in fairness in AI, that don't know how to minimize bias and that think, well, if I'm not putting bias in there intentionally, everything is fine, right? Because they never measure, they don't see that they are creating bias. And I think because we have built that technology, those algorithms, it would be amazing for us to also plug those into those systems and really like more systemically eradicate bias in hiring.
So what's a really simple example of debiasing? Like, is that just about taking years off so people don't know how old somebody is? Or, what are some of those things that it actually does?
It's actually quite crazy because I was just seeing a study done on LLMs having to complete sentences, right? So it's like an LLM being asked, women are supposed to, and then it completes the sentence saying, take care of children, right? So just thinking that, yeah, it does that. But if we put it in the right direction, it could also be much smarter. So one example is the LLM produces certain recommendation for what candidates are a good fit for this position. And then we ask the LLM, okay, now check this candidate and ask yourself if this woman from Honduras who is also a single mom and has 2 small kids, which the AI can deduce from the CV, even if the information is not there, if that person was a man, would you recommend the same positions? And that's one of these small tricks that's super powerful in changing how the LLM responds. So we have a lot of small tricks that like ask the LLM to self-correct.
Interesting.
I've just done it live and I'm horrified.
What did it say?
What did it say?
I don't know.
Which LLM was it, first of all? Let's call it out. Is it
Chat.
chat?
Yeah.
What's it say?
So apparently the punchy podcast style is women are supposed to shrink themselves to fit in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Wow.
Women are supposed to prove themselves twice as much for half the credit. Women are supposed to wait their turn even when the turn never comes.
Surely this is it being ironic to some
I'm
extent,
like,
I hope.
I'm going to swear at this thing. Like I feel my blood boiling. Like it can't be serious, right?
So clearly the anti-bias tool has quite a lot
Yeah.
of hard work to do.
Women are supposed to be confident, but not too confident. They're supposed to lead, but still make everyone else feel comfortable while doing it. They're meant to be grateful for a seat at the table, not redesign the table.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
So that's actually a good segue into talking about the Women in AI award you've just been made a finalist for, which is
Yeah.
She Shapes AI. How do you perceive women in the world of AI? Are you seeing there being an increase, or are you feeling positive about the landscape, or what's your thinking?
Yeah, I think way too few women are in AI. Way too many women think they won't know how to build an AI startup. And all women that use AI, in my perspective, are very smart about how to use it, because we have ourselves lived so many things that were unhelpful, like biases, people not taking us seriously. I think we do have a sensitivity for solving problems in a more nuanced way. And I think that applies to a lot of other people as well, not just women. And I think that's where, like, every time I see a solution built with AI by women, honestly, I think it's just something so important that the world needs. What I think when I see She Shapes AI is that, yes, we need to push ourselves into being the heroes of the story,
Mhm.
take everything that we know and build the solutions that the world needs and show the world how amazing the solutions are that women are building with AI.
Amazing. So if people wanted to find out more about Intrare or about you, what would be the best way to do that?
Probably on LinkedIn. You can look us up right there, look up my LinkedIn profile as well, and reach out also if you're interested in any of what we're talking about, especially on the whole bias part. It's something that's so specialized that we love sharing knowledge with others as well, and also hear from others' experience.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. That was really interesting. And hopefully we'll see you in London in April, is it? If you can make it. But if not, do keep in touch. And yeah, best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. And congratulations on your amazing podcast.
Thank you.
It's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.